Over the past couple weeks, I've mostly just been watching comedies and game shows because life is hard. And I don't know about you guys, but I would also say it's getting pretty scary out there. And I'm just hoping that the AI or the aliens can save us at this point, but who knows? Lots of people think they're gonna kill us. So I've been in need of movies that can help me to lighten up a little bit, and I've been in need of movies where the people in the movie have not been canceled. And so what we have here to talk about today is just a good old-fashioned comedy called I Love You Man. This movie is about the unlikely friendship that develops between two guys named Peter and Sydney, who are more or less living opposite lifestyles. Peter is just about to get married, and Sydney seems to be pretty passionate about living the bachelor life. This movie begins with Peter getting engaged to his girlfriend Zoe, and as the two of them start to talk about the wedding, Peter starts to realize that, hey, I don't have any, I'm going to need some groomsmen, and I don't have any male friends actually. So he starts looking for some new friends, and long story short, along comes Sydney, and antics ensue. As far as I know, this is considered to be one of the first bromance movies ever made, where it's got all the typical trappings of a rom-com, except instead of being about two lovers, it's about two friends. And surprisingly, I don't think this concept has been replicated yet. And just like any good comedy, this movie has a number of quotable moments, which I'm sure you will be aware of if you've seen this movie before. But just as an example, I was talking to some of my friends, and they play in a band together, and they were trying to organize a show for next month. But their bass player was saying that he's going to be out of town, and so naturally, I was just like, hey, I could fill in. I slap at a bass. And one of my favorite things about this movie is how Peter will just make up words sometimes because he's just so desperate to impress his new friend Sydney. And there's this one scene where he's talking to Sydney on the phone, but instead of saying see you later, he says leches on the menje. And that is not something that I would quote out loud probably, but it is something that I quote to myself from time to time. I feel like I can relate to both of these characters because at different times in my life, I would say I've been in both of their shoes. I would say that when I was younger, I was more like Peter in that I was much more of a relationship guy, and I just didn't make a whole lot of time for my other friends. And it's like the classic story. I'm sure you've known people like this who they get into a new relationship, and then all of a sudden, you just don't see them around as much anymore. And unfortunately, that was me. But now I would say I'm more like Sydney in that I'm just unwilling to grow up in a lot of ways. And I've just been single for a pretty long time now. I'm not nearly as suave as Sydney is in this movie. But what I mean to say is that I think my individualistic lifestyle is just starting to get old. And I'm starting to feel the consequences of that now. And I think watching this movie has been kind of just like a friendly word of encouragement for me to try to find some more balance in my life. Because that's essentially what these two characters do for each other. They bring balance into each other's lives. And of course, real life is just more complicated than all that. But at least this movie has helped me to feel a little more confident that maybe balance is something I can achieve. Which is really nice because oftentimes it can feel pretty hopeless, I've just had such a hard time finding a true life partner over these past years. But it really just doesn't have to be so negative like that. And actually, I do have a bunch of friends in my life who are kind of like Peter in that they, they're married or they're in long-term relationships. And I would say all of those people inspire me on a regular basis to just be chill about it and just keep trying. To wrap this up, I would say that I Love You Man is pretty much comedy by the numbers, but it does have an original concept, and the cast is full of very talented and very funny people. And I would say overall it's a standout comedy from its time.